The massive boardroom doors slowly opened. Every conversation inside instantly died. Executives turned toward the entrance as a woman in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit walked confidently into the room. Her heels echoed against the marble floor with slow, controlled precision. At the head of the table sat Billionaire CEO Julian Thorne, and the moment he looked up, the color drained from his face, because the woman walking toward him wasn't supposed to come back. 5 years ago, Julian destroyed her life. Now she was standing in the middle of his boardroom holding the power to destroy him. Emily Carter calmly placed a leather folder onto the conference table. Julian stared at her in complete disbelief. "You're the new CEO?" he asked quietly. Emily adjusted the gold watch on her wrist before meeting his eyes. "I'm the woman who now owns 51% of Thorne Global," she said calmly. "And I believe you're sitting in my chair." The room fell silent. Julian immediately grabbed the documents in front of him, flipping through the pages faster and faster. The signatures were real. The contracts were finalized. His company no longer belonged to him, for the first time in years. Julian Thorne looked terrified. Buzz. Emily's phone vibrated inside her purse. She glanced down at the message. "Leo says he misses you already." A soft ache hit her chest. Because Julian didn't know about Leo. He didn't know the child he rejected before birth was alive, and in just a few moments, he was about to find out. But before we continue, please subscribe to this channel, give this video a like, and tell me where you're watching from today. 5 years earlier, before the heartbreak, before the revenge, before the billion-dollar takeover, Emily Carter was just an ordinary woman trying to survive in New York City. She worked long hours as an event coordinator at a luxury hotel in Manhattan. One rainy night, the hotel hosted a charity gala for some of the wealthiest people in the country. That was the night she met Julian Thorne. Emily accidentally spilled coffee across the front of his expensive suit. She panicked immediately. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry!" But instead of getting angry, Julian laughed. "It's all right," he said, smiling. "I hated this suit anyway." That moment changed everything. A week later, Julian returned to the hotel asking for her by name. Their first date lasted 6 hours. And for the first time in years, Emily felt truly seen. Julian wasn't cold with her. He was charming, protective, attentive. He took her to rooftop dinners overlooking the city, weekend trips to Italy, late-night drives through Manhattan. But Emily's favorite moments weren't the expensive ones. It was the quiet nights when Julian would pull her close and talk about their future together. Marriage, children, a family. And Emily believed him completely. For 3 years, they were inseparable. Emily became the one person Julian trusted more than anyone else. Or at least, that's what she thought. Then came the merger. The biggest business deal of Julian's career. Billions of dollars were on the line. And suddenly, everything changed. Julian became colder, more distant, always working. Emily kept telling herself things would go back to normal after the merger was complete. Then one evening, she discovered she was pregnant. Emily cried tears of happiness staring down at the pregnancy test. She imagined Julian smiling, holding her, telling her everything would be okay. Instead, that night destroyed her life. Julian stood near the penthouse window overlooking the city lights, while Emily smiled nervously through tears. "We're having a baby," she whispered. At first, Julian said nothing, then slowly, his expression hardened. "I can't deal with this right now," he said coldly. Emily froze. "What do you mean?" "The merger is happening in 2 months," Julian snapped. "My image cannot survive a scandal." Emily stared at him in disbelief. "A scandal," she whispered. "This is our child." But Julian walked to his desk, grabbed his checkbook, wrote down a number, and tossed it onto the counter. "Take the money," he said flatly. "Get rid of it and leave." Emily felt her entire world collapse. The same man who once promised her forever now looked at her like she meant nothing, like their baby was just another problem to erase. That night, Emily walked out carrying one suitcase. and a heartbreak so deep she thought it might destroy her forever. The months after were brutal. Emily worked diner shifts while pregnant, cleaned offices at night, and sometimes slept in cheap motel rooms because she couldn't afford rent. But every time she touched her stomach, she remembered why she couldn't give up. Her son deserved better. Then one day, everything changed. Emily met Marcus Hale, a retired billionaire investor known for building tech empires from nothing. Most people saw Emily as a struggling single mother. Marcus saw brilliance. He offered her an opportunity to work with him, and Emily grabbed it with both hands. For years, she worked harder than everyone around her. She studied business strategy while Leo slept beside her at night. She learned about investments, negotiations, corporate acquisitions, and slowly, Emily became unstoppable. But while Emily was building herself up, Julian was slowly destroying his own empire. The merger he sacrificed everything for turned into a disaster. His business partners betrayed him. Several risky investments failed. Then came the lawsuits, bad press, financial losses, shareholders losing confidence. Julian became desperate to save Thorne Global. What he didn't realize, Emily was quietly watching everything from the shadows. Using a private investment company under Marcus Hale's network, Emily began buying small percentages of Thorne Global stock. Quietly, patiently, strategically. When other investors panicked and sold their shares, Emily bought them. When Julian borrowed money to save the company, Emily's investment group bought the debt. When shareholders started losing faith in Julian's leadership, Emily stepped in behind the scenes offering stability. And piece by piece, she slowly took control of the empire Julian once valued more than his own family. Until finally, she owned 51% of the company, the same company Julian sacrificed Emily and their child to protect, now belonged to her. But despite all her success, Leo remained the most important part of Emily's life, a bright little boy with Julian's eyes and Emily's gentle heart. He loved dinosaurs, chocolate pancakes, and bedtime stories. But sometimes, he asked questions that broke Emily inside. "Mommy, where's my daddy?" Emily never knew how to answer. How could she explain that his father chose money over him before he was even born? So instead, she hugged him tightly and whispered, "You are loved more than anything in this world." Back in the boardroom, Julian stared at Emily with shaking hands. "You planned all of this?" he whispered. Emily looked directly into his eyes. "You taught me exactly what happens when someone has no power," she replied calmly. "So I made sure nobody would ever destroy me again." Julian looked completely stunned. The woman he abandoned had quietly taken everything from him. And just as Emily prepared to end the meeting, the boardroom doors suddenly burst open. "Mommy!" A small boy ran into the room holding a silver pen. "I found your lucky pen!" The room froze instantly. Julian stared directly at the child, at the dark eyes, the familiar smile, the face that looked exactly like his own. The realization hit him immediately. His breathing stopped. "Oh my God!" Julian slowly looked back at Emily. His voice trembled. "Emily." He swallowed hard. "Is he mine?" Immediately, Emily pulled Leo protectively closer to her side. Her expression turned cold. "He is my son, Julian." Pain filled Julian's face instantly. "I didn't know." "You chose not to know," Emily interrupted sharply. "You made your decision 5 years ago." Tears filled Julian's eyes for the first time. And finally, the billionaire understood what real loss felt like. Emily looked at him one final time. "My assistant will send your severance package," she said coldly. "You can leave now." And for the first time in his life, Julian Thorne walked away with absolutely nothing. But the story didn't end there. For weeks after the takeover, Julian disappeared from public view. Business magazines called it the fall of a billionaire. News stations speculated about bankruptcy. Former friends stopped answering his calls. The same people who once praised him suddenly acted like he no longer existed. And for the first time in years, Julian was alone. Meanwhile, Emily officially became CEO of Thorne Global. But unlike Julian, she ran the company differently. Employees who had been overworked finally received fair treatment. Departments Julian planned to cut were saved. Charity programs returned. And slowly, the company began thriving again under Emily's leadership. People admired her, not because she was ruthless, but because she understood struggle. Every decision she made came from remembering the nights she had nothing. And every evening, no matter how busy she became, Emily still rushed home to Leo, because at the end of the day, he mattered more than money ever would. Then one rainy evening, there was a knock at her door. Emily opened it slowly and froze. Julian stood there soaked from the rain, but he looked nothing like the man she once knew. The expensive confidence was gone. The arrogance had disappeared. For the first time, he simply looked human. "I'm not here to ask for the company back," he said quietly. Emily said nothing. Julian's eyes slowly filled with emotion. "I just wanted to know him." Emily's heart tightened instantly. Behind her, Leo peeked curiously around the corner. Julian looked at the little boy carefully, and tears immediately filled his eyes, because standing there in dinosaur pajamas was the son he threw away before ever giving him a chance. "Hi," Leo said shyly. Julian could barely speak. "Hi, buddy." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Leo smiled slightly. "Mommy says rain means the sky is sad." Julian let out a broken laugh. "She's usually right." Emily watched silently as father and son looked at each other for the very first time. And for the first time in years, Julian realized success meant nothing if you had nobody to share it with. Over the next several months, something unexpected happened. Julian changed. He went to therapy, started rebuilding his life quietly away from the spotlight, and little by little, Emily allowed him to spend time with Leo. At first, it was awkward, painful, careful, but Julian showed up every single time. School events, birthday parties, weekend visits, not as a billionaire, as a father. And slowly, Leo began loving the man Julian was becoming. One evening, after putting Leo to bed, Julian looked at Emily quietly. "I will regret what I did for the rest of my life," he admitted. Emily looked down for a moment before answering softly. "You can't change the past, Julian. I know. But you can decide what kind of person you'll be moving forward." Julian nodded slowly, tears filling his eyes again. Because after losing everything, he finally understood what truly mattered. And in the end, Emily didn't just rebuild her own life, she rebuilt a broken man too. Not through revenge, but through strength, through survival, and through refusing to let pain turn her cruel. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs this reminder today. And now tell me honestly, if you were Emily, would you have forgiven Julian? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next story.